Welcome to my channel.
In a house built on bloodlines, one boy was born to be forgot.
My head ached, a constant throb.
Behind me, I heard the cry of another trainee collapsing.
It was no joke. The pain was real, echoing the cries of others training around me.
The training captain just sighed, muttering about usefulness. His whip cracked, a sharp sound cutting through the air. Barik was still pushing himself, panting and bleeding, but the captain just noted he wasn't skilled. Barik's eyes burned with a fierce, desperate light, refusing to give up even as his body screamed. He then added, as if to himself, that Barik simply didn't have talent. It was a cold truth. Some things, no matter how hard you tried, were just unreachable. The captain looked away, a hard expression on his face. It was important, I thought, to know your place and when to quit. He finished his thought, stating that one should lead a life while staying in their lane. I thought about the training captain's words, about knowing your place, but my eyes lingered on Barik. The training captain, thankfully, called for a rest in the shade. Watching Barik, exhausted and defeated, felt like looking at a reflection of my own past misfortunes. If fate had been crueler, I could have easily been in his position. I walked over to the collapsed figure on the ground. "You're Barik, right?" He was struggling to breathe. "Can you get up?" I asked.
He just groaned, so I offered my name, Ian.
From the sidelines, some of the other trainees muttered about my disrespect. Ignoring them, I reached out and gently touched Barik's cheek, noticing the faint scar there. He flinched, turning his head away from my touch, a spark of defiance in his eyes.
"Leave me alone," he rasped, pushing my hand away.
Magic is a potent force against ordinary people. I knew, but for those with even a slight affinity, direct contact with it can be jarring, almost like a rejection. I wondered how Barik, with his faint magical glimmer, would react to what I was about to do. My true power, long dormant, surged through this body, radiating outwards in golden light. The residual energy of a magic swordsman, the same kind I once wielded, was now fully awakened. I extended my hand, and a small, precise burst of my golden magic met the water bucket beside Barik. The water in the bucket reacted violently, splashing out with surprising force, drenching a startled Barik.
"Hey, what did you put in that water?" Barik demanded, scrambling back, his eyes wide.
"Nothing," I replied, my gaze level, a slight smile playing on my lips. I rose to leave, intending to let the magic do its subtle work.
"Huh?" Barik stammered, then paused, a strange look on his face. "But I do feel energetic."
He looked at his hands, then back at me, a flicker of genuine surprise in his eyes. I simply nodded, walking away and leaving him to ponder the sudden shift in his exhaustion. The feeling of revitalized energy reminded me of a letter I'd once written to my mother, back in a different life, promising her that infinite darkness does not exist. I remembered the careful strokes of the quill as I practiced writing, wondering if this was how I did it, if this was how I truly conveyed hope. Then a man, a Central Barrel University visitor, entered the room, smiling politely. He handed me a book, and I returned his smile, though I knew nothing of him. My eyes, however, studied his closely.
"Pardon, I need to get to Central urgently. I'm asking a personal question like that because you seem different."
I calmly stated that I knew he was from Central Barrel University and asked if he knew someone here, implying he didn't need to answer if it was awkward.
"No, if you ask me all of a sudden."
I dismissed him, telling him I understood and he could go, and he quickly turned to leave. My eyes remained fixed, reflecting on the encounter. I sat alone in the library, looking at the letter, its words a distant echo. The letter about climate change in the heavens was a relic of my past life. It was a reminder that I had once been emperor. I watched the other trainees, their faces contorted in pain and exhaustion, as they pushed through the grueling exercises. Even the stronger ones, like Meryl, were struggling, their breath coming in ragged gasps.
40 minutes left.
The training captain's voice cut through the air, and I saw more trainees falter, their legs giving out from under them. I noticed Barik, still on his feet though barely, his body trembling with effort. He let out a yell as he swung his wooden sword, a desperate attempt to keep going. But his movements were slow, his energy almost completely drained. Meryl, still pushing, saw his chance and moved in. He brought his own wooden sword down with a vicious grin, aiming for a decisive blow.
Barik.
Meryl's attack connected, and the sound of wood striking bone echoed across the training grounds.
Seriously.
Take it easy, Meryl spat, as Barik stumbled back, clutching his side and gasping for air from the impact.
I stepped forward, gripping the wooden sword, and told Meryl, "Stop throwing tantrums." I named him directly, Meryl.
His eyes narrowed in my direction, a flicker of something dark passing through them. He held his own wooden sword with a menacing grin, his gaze fixed on me, clearly enjoying the confrontation.
He laughed, then declared, "You really want to die, don't you?"
He lunged at me with a wild swing, but I dodged, hearing the training captain's voice cut through the air, telling him to stop.
"Keep acting up," the training captain warned him, "and you won't live a long life."
Barik, still recovering, groaned. "I told you I didn't want to fight him."
I looked at Barik, who was gritting his teeth, obviously in pain.
I knelt beside him and reminded him, "I told you to get lost, didn't I? If you want to win against him, you need to find a way." I turned back to Meryl, my expression serious, and asked him, "Is that how you do things?"
Meryl just gripped his wooden sword tighter, his face contorted with rage, and snarled, "I'm going to kill you."
That was when Chell appeared, stepping in front of me and telling Meryl, "I feel bad because you're like this." I ignored the escalating tension between them for a moment, looking at Barik and making a promise to him. "I'll help you." Then I met his eyes again, my own expression firm, and added, "But you need to help me." I reached out and placed my hand on Barik's head, and I could feel the faint spark of magic in him respond to my touch. A fierce grin spread across Barik's face, and in that moment, I knew he understood what I was asking of him.
I'd stepped between Meryl and Barik, and now Meryl glared at me with pure fury, his face contorted as I held him by his head, the golden light of my magic flaring around my hand. He snarled, ready to tear into me, but he was trapped, pinned by a force he couldn't understand.
When it was over, Meryl was sent to the infirmary, leaving Barik to kneel in punishment by the training ground gates. I watched Barik, still kneeling there, and a thought sparked in my mind. Confusion rippled through the other trainees. One of them, a dark-haired figure, looked up, muttering about Barik being a mage swordsman and not their sidekick. Another trainee, startled, looked on as Barik was punished. The scene replayed in my mind. Barik, with a wild grin, had been fighting fiercely against another trainee. His red hair flew as he attacked, a strange, almost manic energy pulsing around him. He'd pinned his opponent against a wall, his expression intense. His opponent had cried out in frustration as Barik continued to press him, a raw power in his movements. The blows landed with brutal force, sending blood splattering as the other trainees watched, horrified. A red-haired trainee on the ground, wounded, pleaded with Barik to stop, wondering why he was so strong, while others shouted, calling Barik a crazy bastard. Even as I watched, Meryl's comrades rushed in, holding Barik down, trying to stop the fight.
Meryl, still on the ground, just laughed, a manic, broken sound. He raised a hand to me, bloodied but still sneering, asking if I thought it was stupid for him to have picked this fight.
That was his mistake. I delivered a swift kick that silenced him completely. Meryl was sent to the infirmary, and Barik, despite being the one provoked, was sent to the punishment room.
The training captain just sighed, running a hand over his scarred face.
He looked at me, a silent question in his eyes.
He just addressed me as Sir Ian, a simple recognition of my status here.
I asked him if something was wrong, and he simply said Meryl had gotten an earful of curses. He pointed out the general confusion among the other trainees, who were still milling about, unsure what to make of it all. One of the trainees, a red-haired figure, was still being helped up, looking dazed. I replied that kicking Meryl out wasn't my intention, though I suspected it might happen eventually anyway. It was better this way, with Barik not beholden to anyone. It would make him easier to use for my own plans. The chapter title appeared, marking a shift in my reflections as I considered my next moves. Soon after, I found myself in Lord Mullen's opulent sitting room, preparing for our meeting with other household officials already present. The head butler began speaking, mentioning Lord Mullen's knack for something before trailing off.
I'm delighted by your grasp of the estate's finances.
I agreed to compile data on the total harvested grains, the mining output from the Molentanes in Mon, and the taxation of the farmers, all tasks I could easily manage.
Lord Mullen smiled, placing a hand over his heart, expressing his respect for my decision.
I simply nodded, knowing my assessment of him was correct. I noticed Lord Mullen's seal was identical to the one on the paper my tutor had dropped earlier, confirming a connection I would need to exploit. Holding my teacup, I decided I would make use of this information when the time was right. Later, I walked through the sunlit corridors of the estate. My steps echoed as I moved through the arched walkways, heading toward my next confrontation. I grabbed Chell by his collar, pulling him close. He stumbled back, his eyes wide. A servant nearby glanced over, startled by the sudden commotion. Another servant quipped about a fart, trying to lighten the mood, but the air around us was anything but light. Chell stared at me, his red hair a stark contrast to my blonde. I met his gaze, my green eyes unwavering.
Barik. And the head butler said I could come in any time.
I knew then that Count Brack had already set another pair of eyes on me, trying to use the head butler to keep tabs. I accused Chell directly, my voice low. You used drugs on me, didn't you? Every time we met, my body felt off. Tell me the truth. It was a cheap method, but effective. Chell just looked at me, a silent, almost pained expression on his face. He just stared back, his red hair falling over a face that seemed to be going through 100 thoughts at once. I reached out and grabbed his arm, pulling him closer to make sure he was paying attention.
Before that, you need to keep quiet about my golden eyes. Those eyes. I'm not done talking, so listen properly. You're to stay by my side as my bodyguard. That's my final condition. Then the power you felt. I'll help you make it your own.
Chell's eyes widened, a golden glow appearing in his chest as if in response to my words. He had a lot of questions, but I brushed them aside.
So listen closely. There are a few in this world who have the power to resonate with their souls, and we call that magic. You have the potential for magic, but that same magic blocks your energy.
It was a power that training alone could never have given him.
So, you need to learn to use the magic within you. Chell, the very magic you say is blocking your energy. You will develop the path that connects the energies of your body and soul. You're going to help me make that path for myself. Are you certain you want to make such a hasty decision? To protect me, you'll have to travel across state lines with me. I might die, but if I don't follow you, I'll starve to death anyway. He just smiled, holding out his hand, and I took it.
So stubborn and reckless too. Perhaps that's what makes Chell so suitable to be a mage swordsman. They say the greater a mage swordsman, the more peculiar they are. They never accept defeat, never pass up a chance to slash. There's no match for a warrior who does not fear death. Chell's eyes burned with a new resolve. A warm, vibrant golden light erupted from my hands, illuminating the space between us. With that, a new chapter was about to begin for us both. That was the chapter. Subscribe for the next part of his rise.